Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest episode of Tales from Outer Space, taken from the subreddit HFY. The links to all the stories will be down below, and as always, I hope that you enjoy. And if you do, please consider subscribing. Story number 1, Human Training, written by Hippopotamus. The humans were lying to us. It was the only explanation. Year after year, the humans sent their recruits to the Galactic Union Training Center, and every year it became clear that they had an advanced level of training already. Yet, again and again, the humans denied providing such training. They claimed that they only provided an academic education, but what we observed went beyond that. Situational, tactical awareness, hunting and stealth preparation, squad tactics. It wasn't instincts. We have ways of measuring that. It was a learned behavior. All of that is why I find myself at human school. I came to observe their education firsthand to see if the humans were trying to sneak something into their classrooms that would explain this. During the morning session, I had found nothing. The humans were teaching academic subjects like they said. Now, the time allotted for the midday meal was nearly over. Always prompt, I returned to the classroom and found the teacher that I was assigned to sitting behind a desk in an otherwise empty room. "Gornak, you're here early," she said, looking up at the startled expression. "Only a few of your minutes," I said. "Surely that isn't an odd. Doesn't the meal period end at 12:30? Yes. But then there's a half an hour recess, so the kids won't be back in the classroom until 1. Recess. Of course, so recess isn't in the classroom. My briefing material had been oddly silent about what recess thing was, but I didn't want to reveal my ignorance. It seemed a unique human concept, but whenever we asked, the humans had laughed it off like it was wholly unimportant. She sensed my confusion. That didn't explain recesses, did they? Typical bigwigs, ignoring anything not immediately task-related. Recess is a period, usually after lunch, where we kinda just let the kids unwind, have fun, and play outside, and do whatever they want to do. I was alarmed. You just leave your children unsupervised for 30 minutes in the middle of the day. She laughed. No, we keep an eye on them, making sure that they don't wander off, or even being inappropriate towards each other. We found that it's tough for kids to maintain focus for a full day, and having this break in the middle helps with the concentration. Plus, they get to have fun and play games on their own. "Would you mind if I observed the students during this recess?" I asked. "Of course not. You just walk out to the back door and they'll be in the play area." I hadn't even noticed that building had a rear egress, much less looked to see what lay beyond it. But I was able to find my way there. I was not prepared for what I saw. The first thing I noticed was a chaotic metal structure with various tubes connecting one another. The human children were grabbing the tubes and climbing all over it. No wonder they came to the training center with advanced abilities in treetop reconnaissance. Here was a training center. I saw other children practicing advanced acceleration and deacceleration G-force acclimation, including a bailout technique. I saw others doing high-speed hunting predation simulation. After observing it became clear that one was designated the hunter. The children called the status being it. The others were designated prey. When the hunter caught the prey and touched him or her, the child became a new hunter. I observed a similar training activity, only rather than focusing on physical pursuit, this allowed for the prey students to set upon the time in which they camouflaged themselves before the predator child began to track them down. There were squad games where liberating the key item from the enemy's sphere of influence was the goal. Another which was a live fire exercise, which a large red rubber ball simulating a thrown explosive. There were spinning devices to train dizziness resistance, and so much more. I found it. I found the human training facility. No wonder they were so secretive about recess. I would be filing my report in the morning and requesting a reprimand for the humans for hiding their training techniques within the children's alleged break. End of story number 1. Story number 2. Human Training Methods by Gornak, written by Hippopotamus. Report on Human Training submitted by Special Envoy from the Galactic Union, Gornak. As you are aware, we have long sought the secret of humans' advanced training of their youth. Ladies and gentlemen and others of the Council, I have found it. The humans have taught their children training measures as a form of recreation. We never found it in their official reports because these games are handed down almost exclusively via oral tradition. And what they are not, they are considered as such trivial activities by humans that materials on them were never produced. At first, I believed the humans were intentionally hiding the activity from me. But once I discovered it and questioned them about it, they were almost too happy to provide me with information about the activities. What's odd about it is that the humans themselves seem completely oblivious to the training's value of these activities, have conducted little formal study on the matter, and have a few, if any, formal compendia of knowledge concerning them. However, every human I talked to about these games would gush excitedly about them, and how they gained pleasure from them in their youth. While the humans may be ignorant to the extent of the so-called recreational activities are, in fact, survival and military skill trainings due to a bizarre cultural blind spot, such ignorance does not excuse the lack of candor with the Council, nor for subjecting their younglings to such harsh activities, and leave the appropriate sanctions to the Council. Ambassador Frank Bryce turned over the report and sighed. Really? The aliens wanted to make an issue about elementary school playtime. Well, he needed to be ready. Barney, get me Dr. Martin Scarn. I need to talk to the good doctor. Again. Dr. Scarn was the leading expert on comparative pterobiology and xenobiology. If anyone could help them figure this out, it was him. He's on line 1, Ambassador. Thanks, Barney. Martin, got another problem. The Gornak report. Yeah. I had a feeling that you'd be calling me about that one. So, what do you know? Here's the thing that you have to understand. Earth is an incredibly energy-rich environment. Many creatures, including humans, often run caloric surpluses. Okay, are you saying that is not the case elsewhere? Heavens, no. Most life exists counting every calorie they need to survive. Okay, so what does that have to do with this situation? When you are counting calories to survive, overactivity is a threat to your existence. Downtime is spent lowering the metabolic rate. Play is a luxury that you don't have. While most sentient beings have found ways to generate energy and food that makes those original struggles obsolete, the biological imperative to preserve energy remains. As such, they did not develop the type of play impulse that we did. What do you mean by play impulse, Doctor? Well, in an energy-rich environment, at some point avoiding being eaten becomes a greater survival need than calorie preservation. Animals who used their caloric surplus to train themselves had a better chance of not being killed, and therefore of surviving, than those that did not. And, well, biology tends to find a way to encourage behaviors, so we develop boredom. Wait, what? Boredom! It's a survival tactic. It encourages us to participate in activities that train our minds and our bodies for survival purposes. Wait, are you saying that this guy is right? The kids' games are from the survival training? Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, we didn't design them that way, but that's what makes them fun. The simulation of danger and the need to win create an endorphin rush, but it's just how we are wired. It's so baked into our way of thinking that the idea of Xenos might see it differently is something that the bigwigs ever thought of. So what do I do now? Honestly, apologize and offer to share our information with the Galactic Union. Just because the play doesn't come natural to them doesn't mean that they can't learn. Besides, haven't you always wanted to see a Kokolian play soccer? Ambassador Bryce smiled. He could work with us. End of story number 2. Story number 3. None Remain, written by Chicken Verhet. Gentle beings, honored members of the Grand Assembly, friends, today we have gathered to commemorate the anniversary of the end of the Scourge War. We have come to celebrate the galactic victory and to remember the fallen. I am known by many monikers, but I have no name. Among my people, the Seth, individuals do not take names until they reach adulthood. Our chosen names have a deep import and speak of a heart of our being. But in every generation, there are 5 who are destined to be nameless. These 5 are exceptional beings chosen to dedicate themselves to the life of service, bringing the greatest good to the most people. They are addressed not by their name, but by their duty, for that is who they are. Every nameless has become legendary. It is both a great honor and a great burden I've chosen. I am one such individual. My life is one of duty. I have come to carry out my final duty today. I will remind you of the hero species. The Sep have a tradition as old as our earliest records. When a group distinguishes itself by an act of heroism, it is remembered. We have many hero towns, cities, nations, and even hero planets. This is a tale of the first and only hero species. We owe them everything. None remain. The Sep first encountered them 3 centuries ago. We thought them barbaric, overly aggressive, but they said they were happy to leave us alone in return for quid pro quo. We traded with them to some extent, as did all of the galactic neighbors. Their aggression scared us, but we were never its target. The Assembly became aware of them for their actions in the First and Second Voran conflicts 2 centuries ago. The Voran had invaded Seth space, subduing our colonies and enslaving our people. Our neighbors did nothing to help us when the hero species traders jumped to our homeworld to find it under occupation. Our population subjected. They vowed to return. We did not think that they would. My grandfather was a child then. He used to tell me stories of the Voran ships burning in the skies, the orbital drop pods slamming into the surface and discharging troops. He told me that he still had nightmares of the brutality with which they destroyed the Voran. They were not cruel or sadistic, just utterly ruthless, calculating. He also told me of the monster in combat armor leaning over to give him water, food, and candy when they liberated the internment camps. They drove the Voran off the planets. They helped us rebuild. They rebuilt the hospitals, food production and distribution centers, schools. They rebuilt roads, helped us re-engineer technology that the Voran had suppressed. They retrained our skilled workers and even rebuilt our cities. They took the shattered people and made us whole. When they left, they did not want us to be reconquered, so they gave us a fleet, just gave us an entire fleet for us to use. None remain, but that fleet still stands. My grandfather became a journalist, and he once asked one of their leaders why they did this. Why did they start a war with a species they had no quarrel with, to help a species they barely knew? The leader seemed confused, but answered, "We had to. It was the right thing to do." The first Voran conflict made the Assembly take notice. Watch them to see why the Voran suddenly were no longer had control of almost 24 systems. When the Voran struck back against us both, you saw what would cause you to condemn them. We were more than capable then, but the Voran had grown stronger as well. None of that mattered to the hero species. They struck back after the first blow. Our joint fleets pushed into the Voran territory. We were angered at finding the Empire built on slaves, but our allies, they were furious. The Seth fleets could barely keep up as they tore through the Voran, liberating slave world after slave world. They would not stop. When they reached the capital, they reduced the Voran to primitives, barely capable of agrarian society. The hero species had a term for this. They called it bombing them back to the Stone Age. This brutality shocked us, but we admitted that it was somewhat deserved. The Assembly was horrified and barred them from membership. 50 years ago, the Scourge came. It struck the worlds of the assembly with no warning and no mercy. The entire systems were lost in days as the swarm poured through the galaxy. In this time of need, the hero species offered its aid to everybody that had rejected them and denied them a place in the galactic society. What kind of species would do that? Now, none remain. They were not integrated into the assembly fleets, but they fought anyway. I personally have witnessed more acts of their heroism than I can count. On one of my first deployments to the Nameless, I was known as the Agent, and was tasked with collecting vital intelligence on the Scourge. It is well known that the information I gathered saved countless lives and helped forestall the swarm. What is not known is that 300 of the finest soldiers that I have ever seen died, extracting me from that world as the Scourge took it. I still remember the last survivor of that unit throwing me into a dropship as it took off. I could still hear his defiant scream as the ramp closed and the swarm took him. Even the drone pilot of that ship sacrificed himself, maneuvering the vessel to protect its occupant from the enemy fire and sustaining critical damage in doing so. Even their machines were heroes. Now, none remain. 2 decades later, as the Admiral, I oversaw the evacuation of Balat Cluster. I was 3 jumps away, protecting a rendezvous point with the hero species' 5th Fleet. Reported Scourge contacts as the last of the evacuees left the system. I ordered reinforcements to cover the retreat. They responded in the negative, telling me that they would hold the line, so that the Scourge couldn't chase us. Their Admiral, the last transmission informed us that lost refugees were away. Then simply said, "We are all in sight. Godspeed. We will resist and bite." My flare captain simply nodded and told me the Admiral was Balgan. I still don't know what that was significant. 5th Fleet was gone. None remain. When the Scourge learned that the hero species had been responsible for their greatest defeats, they targeted them specifically. Their worlds burned, yet they fought on for us. The Scourge hunted down their Ark fleets, yet they fought on. 10 years ago, only the military was left. None else remained. The Assembly excused them from service, directed them to rebuild their species. They refused. What point is there if the galaxy falls, they said. Now, none remain. The survival of the first assembly fleet of the Battle of Arcturus is widely acknowledged as a turning point. With my fleet intact, I was able to lead us to eventual victory. This would not have been possible if not for the hero species. Their 2nd and 10th fleets destroyed 4 Scourge swarm fleets passing through systems on their way to Arcturus before succumbing. At Arcturus, the 1st, 9th, and 13th fleets, all that remained of their forces, charged into the incoming swarm to buy time. None remain. The last words of the captain they saw surviving ship came as he directed his vessel into the heart of the enemy and detonated the reactor. Rage! Rage against the dying light. The Assembly incorporated them into our fleets, but never granted them membership. None remain. They fought against all the odds to save the galaxy, that condemned them as barbarous murderers, never seeing the good they did. None remain. The Ceph-led recognition proposal has seen a long-held name for them entered their official Assembly designation, hero species. Still, none remain. Most nameless do not know what they will be remembered for, what our purpose or our destiny is. For some, it's the sum of a lifetime of work. For others, a single defining moment. Already, many are calling me the Nameless Hero for my lifetime of accomplishments. But I know that my destiny is meant for one action, one final duty. As the 9th Fleet charged the Scourge at Arcturus, I asked the Admiral why they were doing this. He said, "Because we have to. It's the right thing to do." When asked what I could do, He simply said, "Remember us." This is my final duty. To perform it, today I do what no nameless has ever done. I make my own moniker. I take a name. This name is ancient, possibly the first name that any hero of the species bore. In one of the oldest languages, it is a term for a single individual of their race. None remain, so I take their name. I am Adam, then man. None remain, but they will never be forgotten. End of story number 3. And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed. If you did, please consider supporting the author from the link down below. Otherwise, if you wish to support this channel, there are numerous ways to do so, like liking, subscribing, and possibly even becoming a patron. Otherwise, the easiest way would be to share. And until the next video, I hope that you all have a good one, and I'll see you then. Cheers.